Hi, and thanks for stopping back by my channel. Today we're going to solder some connectors. I've gotten a lot of questions on the XLR connectors on how I solder them, and some people have asked about adding flux and everything. I'm going to show you why I don't use flux. You've got the flux or the rosin built into the solder, and if you do it just right, then you don't have all the sticky flux all over it. If you do add flux, yes, it will flow in beautifully. Then you got this sticky, gooey crap all over your connectors. And a lot of times, you'll be soldering these things actually on the stage an hour before a show or whatever, and you really don't want to have to break out your flux, and the flux syringe will leak in the toolbox, and it's awful. So anyway, I'm going to show you how I do it without the adding flux to it. Pardon me. So I'm just going to kind of go over what I'm going to be working with here, and then I'm going to put the camera on the tripod and we'll try to get some close-up shots. So these are a bag of my returns, and what this is a little kit that I put together for modifying a stage box. If you don't have enough returns, then I'll install these, which eliminates a few channels. And then on the other side, we'll change the ends out so that you can actually run more monitors through the snake. So, just to show people, sometimes it's a little difficult to understand which one of these is input and output. And it's just like, I guess you would say the sexual thing. You've got the males here, so this is going out, and this is the female, which is going in. You can also imagine this like if you look at a microphone. The microphone plugs into this, so this is, the signal goes this way. And then, just like if you were going to the bathroom, guys, this is the male, so this is coming out. So, I guess it's a little crude and rude way to understand it, but this is actually called a female. A lot of people say no, it's a male because of this end, and then they say this is a female because of this end. But you always designate what it is by the pin, not the actual connector. So this would be a female, this would be a male. Okay, so I got a little solder sucker and my favorite little strippers here, which really barely do the job for what we're going to be stripping, but I've got like 3 pairs of these, so I dedicate one for the tape box. My cutters, my needle nose, my soldering block, which I have a video on making these. My scissors is for the shrink wrap, and the shrink wrap that I'm using is just a Harbor Freight pack of shrink wrap, and I just keep it around, and the white one in here happens to work perfectly, so you can cut down some pieces here. And then also I like using these containers. This comes with the Scotch 33 tape or the 88, and this is all I use is 33 or 88. Well, anyway, I keep my razor blades in there, and for repairing these cables you're going to need a nice fresh razor blade, so we'll lay that out. And also on your solder, this is 0.062 diameter, that's 62 thousandths, that's 1/16. That's a really good diameter to run for soldering connectors. You can run this is some eBay thing I bought. It works pretty good. It's 0.6 millimeter. So 1 millimeter is 39 thousandths, so this would be like, if it's a little over 4, this is 20 thousandths. So this is 1/3 of the size of this. And you can use this, but you end up having to push so much of it into it that it's kind of great to use this. So I've got it, this is like a roll that I throw in my tech box, and then this is my bench top stuff. So anyhow, that's the kind of basic layout. Today I'm going to make a cable. This is actually a bad connector, so I'm going to use it to show you how to make a cable. So what we'll be doing is we'll be making a cable that's this female to this TRS. So if this is female here and this is TRS, then the signal path is actually going this way. So You would not typically make this if you had this plugging into an output, because this is an input. So the cable we'll make goes this way. Alright, well, let me clean off the bench top and get the camera angle set up, and we will solder a connector. Okay, so we're going to try this, try to see how well I can get the lighting and all. And I'll try to get some closer shots when I'm actually putting the solder in. So right now I have this connector that's got a wire stuck in it, was just sheared off. So I'm going to disassemble this. And you don't really need the solder sucker to do this, because most of the time you're going to find that there's no lead-free solder in these things. Okay, so I want to get rid of these wires. So this is where the little holder comes in to play. See how close I can get up on this. And it stays zoomed. And there it went. Okay. So the tip that I'm using is a, there it goes. It is a screwdriver looking tip. Let me clean it off some more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the solder to help. It's going to keep it tinned, and it's going to actually add heat transfer for me. So let me get my needle nose. So what I'll do is I've got a little ball of solder right on the end there. So I'm going to grab the wire, I'm going to touch the connector and see it melt and pull it right out. There you go. Alright, hopefully you saw that. Move the light around a little better. Okay. So now, if you want to, you can actually pull the solder out of the cups. Use your solder sucker. And you would heat it. There's actually a piece of solder in the end of the solder sucker. I'm going to have to back this up just a little bit, because it's in nice and tight, but it's not. Yeah, that's focused a little better. So the solder sucker has some solder in the end of it. Here it went. So that was what was in the end of the solder sucker. So you would actually take your soldering iron, heat the cup until it becomes liquid, stick it right over the top, push the button, it'll suck the solder out of it. But typically for a repair you don't need to do that. So here's the new cable. So the first thing we're going to do would be to put the connector on the cable. And then I'm going to use my handy strippers here. Oops. Trying to make sure that you can see this. I've got about 5 inches that I'm working between the camera. So I'm going to come in here and use the 22 gauge stripper part. Okay. That's enough. So let me get my helping hand. To hold that. Can you see that? There we go. I don't think it's trying to focus on the wire. It's trying to focus on this. So we're going to clean my tip. I'm going to tin it with a little solder and oops, a little blob there. Alright, sorry about that off cam there. Now, each time that you go to a wire, add new solder, because the rosin that's in there for the flux is going to make it flow into the wire. If you've got a big ball of solder on the end of your iron and it sits there for long enough, it'll oxidize, and when you go to the next wire, it won't take. So don't be shy with the solder. Don't worry about it. You can buy more. Okay, so get my block back up here. So I've got cheats. I've got pin 1, 2, and 3. So our pin 2 is going to be our red, and our pin 1 and pin 3, 2, and 1. So the way this will be laid out, I've got to actually twist these around a little bit, and so this will be the way it goes together. Alright, so I'm going to take my shrink wrap and stick over here, and you can do a shrink wrap on each one, but I only do it on one. So to get my correct heat transfer, I'm going to put just a dab on the end of the iron, and then I'm going to come over here to the cup. I'm trying to do this working around a camera, and I'm going to get it to where it's melted, drop the wire in, and then let go and let it solidify. And there we go. Might not be able to see that because of the shrink wrap. So we'll push the shrink wrap, and if you do it just right, if you do it like I showed you, get the liquid, get the cups. There we go. Get the cups where they're liquid. Then drop the wire in, wait about a second, and then that will let you, it'll keep the shrink wrap from shrinking too much. This one actually melted into it. The end of that shrink wrap has shrunk. Trying to get it where you can see it. Yeah, that shrunk, so I don't want to edit this. I want you to see this in real time. So what I'll do is I'll come right in here, and let's pull that right back out. Actually flip this shrink wrap around. I might be able to salvage it. There we go. And slide that up over like that. And I take the big part of the soldering iron, and I'll just touch it to the ends, just enough to shrink it down. Okay, now we will put in pin 3. So I'm going to clean my tip, get a little bit of solder on the end of the iron, just for the heat transfer. Get wet, drop it in there, wait a second, and then pull the iron off. Okay, this last one can be a little difficult because sometimes you want to catch yourself trying to touch the wire, and that heat transfers in the wire really quick. And more solder on the iron, and it hurts. Okay, it's liquid. Drop it in, wait a second, pull the iron off, wait for it to solidify, and there we go. So now this is what we have. Alright, so there is the completed connector, and you don't have to do the shrink wrap. And if you get it a little hot and it shrinks, you can just take it loose, flip it over like I did, and keep going. So now we would actually, whoops, pick it up off the floor. I'm trying not to make this video too long, but it may end up being a little longer than expected. So now we have this part of the connector, and you can see where the latch is. If you put it together this way, sometimes it doesn't want to push the latch up, so if you have to, you can flip it over. Alright, we need our strain relief, and that's right here. And you'll see that there's two little ears. This is the Nutric connector. And you'll see there's a little place right there. The new Nutrix doesn't have this. It has a different connector on the back side here. So hold it together like that and push it together, and then screw the end on. You'll hear the clicking. Well, barely. So there is a good connection with a strain relief. So okay, so let's do the other side now. Okay, so I got the other, here's the other end of the wire, and this is our assembly right here. Whoops, actually get it in the camera so you can see it. Alright, so first thing we've got to remember to put this on. That's very important. Alright, now this piece can go on last. This piece can go on last. So now we have this connector here. And we'll use the solder sucker to get this off of here, and I'll show you how to prep this connector. Alright, so use our soldering block. And get our iron. And I'm going to put a little solder on the end of it. That's going to tin it. Okay, get our sucker ready, and we're going to get right on the edge here and suck it right off of there. Some way down here. Alright, so that one's ready. This one over here didn't have anything on it. I'd already cleaned it. So basically we're just going to come right down here on the edge and just put just a little solder there. I'm not going to do anything on here. I'll show you what I'll do with the wire. If it's a different style connector, you can put just a little drop of solder on each one, tin the end of the wire, and then you just basically lay the wire up there and lay the iron, and it melts right in and you get right off of it, and it works really well. Get the foil out of the way. Okay. So now, one question I've had some students ask me, sorry about the blurriness, I didn't realize, I wasn't watching the camera. Some of my students have asked me, how do you know how much wire to strip off? Well, that's an interesting and good question. The main part is your strain relief. You don't want your strain relief way up here. So if these wires were this long, then that would be too much. Actually, looking at it, I'm probably a little bit long right now. We might end up cutting about 1/8 to 3/16 off the end of these wires. It makes it a little more difficult to get the shrink wrap on. Let's cut 1/8 inch off of that. Yeah, I think that looks a little better. And there I go, dropping it from the floor. This wire is only about 1.5 feet long, so I've got the weight of the other connector right now holding it tight. Okay, so I got those strip leaned back, a little strip on there, that one, and that one. And the little helping hand that I'm using here is a little magnetic base. I got it off the tool truck. This is patent pending on it, doesn't have a part number. So I'm just going to let that hold that. And I have the little helping hands that has the magnifying glass, but it's a whole foot away from me, and this is right here in front of me. There's that one, and that one. Oh, sorry about that. You didn't see that. It was just like the other connector I did a few minutes, the other wires I did a few minutes ago. So what we're going to do now is take this, get the strippers out of my way. Okay, the way this is laid out, the one on the left, this is the tip, the one on the right is the ring, and the bottom is sleeve. Let's see if we have enough on our carrier. That's really pushing it. I'll use the scissors and trim this just a little bit. Alright. Whoops. I'll get it where you guys can see it. Cut a little bit of that off. Alright. Gotta hold on to this. So I got the shrink wrap in my hand, and I've got the wire pieces tinned. So I should just be able to come in here and I gotta let go for a second because I gotta tin my tip here and have just a little drop of solder. Hold it, and that should be it. Yep, that's all it took. When you have a little solder on the connector and a little solder on the wire, you're only on it for just a second, just for it to melt in. Okay. Rotate that around. Okay. Now let's see if I can get this one to go in. Oh, that connector's kind of dirty. You know, the one that I said that I didn't need to solder suck would be the one I needed to work on. That might be enough. I'm trying to look in the camera at the same time and see if you guys can see well enough. Now, you can stick this wire in here before it's tinned. Oops, magnet stuck to it. Bend that. There we go. You can stick it in before it's tinned, just the bare wire, and then add the solder at the same time. That adds a little more heat to the connector, so if you're doing shrink wrap with that, that can be an issue. Okay, that was connected. So now the ground, note this is the negative, not the ground. I mean, this is the negative, this is the ground. So don't get them confused. So essentially we have a soldered wire and a tin connector. So And that's all it took right there. So there is the connector completely done. Ooh, it's still hot too. Now, not all TRS connectors are built this way. This is one of the easier ones to solder. But you'll have to just kind of experiment with that and see. Alright, so we're going to put this connector together. So this is how this goes together right here. But before we get this too far on, take our strain relief. You can see that there's the bottom shell. And it's got like a cutout. So this actually goes just like that. So if you actually try to tin and lay your wires on the top, you can run out of room. If you try to stick this wire through the bottom of that hole and solder it, then you won't have enough room for this connector to slide on. So you have to just kind of do like I did, a surface solder there. Okay, and this goes together just like so. And then screw the end on. So now, this is a brand new connector that the ring does not have continuity in here, so I had to trash this one. So if I were to test this, you would not have any continuity on pin 3. So what you're going to have here, when you're testing these, you can take your multimeter, and your pin 1 should have continuity with the sleeve. Pin 2 will have continuity, pin 3 will have continuity with the ring, and pin 2 will have continuity with the tip. And the numbers are written right on here, so you got 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3. So again, pin 1 here will have continuity there. Pin 2 will have continuity on the tip, and pin 3 will have continuity on the ring. But I'm not going to test this because, you know, I was telling you before, this connector is bad. Anyhow, so that's how to solder that one. I'm going to go over one more. I know the video is getting long. We're probably at 30 minutes now, 25 minutes or so. But I've got one more thing to show you. Actually, two more things to show you. How to fill the cups, and then how to strip the bigger mic cable. So I'll be right back. Let me get set up for that. Okay, so now we're going to do the cup filling. And this is where people have issues with putting so much heat into it because they have a dirty iron. And they stick it on the bottom, or they just make a mess of it. They'll melt the connector. And so this is the critical part. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a cup. This could be an XLR connector. And it's the same way with what you guys call a DMX. A DMX is just an XLR 5. So there are XLR, you know, 3s and 4s and 5s, and you never see the 4s. But so it's not necessarily called a DMX connector. DMX is the actual signal. The actual connector itself is just XLR 3, 4, or 5. So what we're going to do to get the cups filled, if you were to let me try to clean this off to where nothing is on the tip at all. So it's actually a clean tip. But if I let it sit out, you can actually, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, you can see it starting to turn colors. This is oxidizing. The oxygen is actually like burning on the surface. And when you see it like this, you'll see it's kind of a, I don't know, it's almost getting a purple color. Then you're getting the oxidation build up on it. Same way, kind of right up here on this part of the tip, you can see it's kind of a darker color. And that's your oxidation. So typically, if you have an iron just like this, and you say, well, my iron's clean, then the common practice is to put the iron under the cup and feed it in from the top. Okay, you saw nothing happen there. I had it against the cup, holding the solder in the top, 2, 3, 4, 5, still nothing happened. Okay, so I'm going to clean my tip off. I'm going to add a little solder onto my tip and hold it against the bottom here. And then there it goes. It just feeds right in till the cup's full. So that's the difference between the heat transfer using the rosin for your flux. Okay, So I got just a little dab of solder on the end of it. Hold it on the end, and there it goes, flowing right in. And get right off of it. Actually, I got too much in that cup. See, I pulled it off. Alright, so add a little more there. Hold it on the bottom. Fill it right in. Just like that. So there are 3 cups filled. So now all you really have to do is you can actually desolder a mic connector like this. And you can actually come in here, and if you're in a hurry, you can swap ends without restripping these. So before we cut and restrip this, we'll come in here. I'm not even going to worry about the pin orientation. I'm just going to come in here and say, okay, we're going to heat this cup and stick the wire in. Wait a second or two and pull it away. Saying, oh, I pulled it away before it was solidified. It's still wet. It's so critical not to move while this thing is solidifying, because if you move, you start introducing air and oxidation into the into the solder, and then that's a bad thing. It'll turn kind of a grayish, nasty look when you do that, and that means that is a bad solder connection. So we'll heat that up, drop the wire right in, get right off of it, and wait a second or two. Okay, there we go. So that was a little quick solder connection. Same way if you're taking one apart, get you some needle nose and get right at the edge of the wire. It helps draw the heat out. Pull that one away. Yes, I just touched the iron just now and that hurt. Okay, so there's filling the cups and swapping the wire out. So now let's take this wire here, and I'm going to show you a trick. What did I do with my razor blade? After cleaning the bench off a couple of times, I think I lost my razor blade. Alright, we'll get a new one. So there's a brand new blade. And I may need to back up just a little bit on this, because it doesn't have to be so close. Now, Harbor Freight sells blades too, and for what I'm using this for, they work just fine. So, if you see here, this is where the strain relief was attached. So it holds pretty good. But if you're going to have a mic cable failure, usually it's going to be right here on the back side of the strain relief. And that's where all the moving around of the cable happens, because it's holding it pretty solid right here. So if you're going to re-splice your cable, splice it right here. So we'll take our cutters. We're going to cut it right behind that strain relief. So now the trick is to get this off of here, to cut it off without cutting into the wires. So I like to bend this thing, take about 1 inch and bend it over, and take your blade and just barely rock over the surface. Okay? If you look real close, you can see that's the little braid around the wire, and just kind of touch the blade. You're not really cutting, you're just going to touch the blade kind of to it. See how it's bent right there? Now watch, I'm just going to touch it. Just see how it's not cut all the way through? That's perfect. Because you can take this thing and just kind of give it a twist, pull it right off of there. So there's less chance of actually cutting into the wires. So then you would just strip this back. Take your cutters, which are way over here. And you don't need all of this, so we'll cut some of that off. And then we'll cut. This is part of the strain relief, which keeps the, by the way, this style cable that has this twine in it is very nice cable. Okay, we'll cut that. So now you have your stripped part. Now we did 1 inch, so once we actually come in here and we get to where we're ready to solder onto this, so we're going to twist this ground up, or drain. This is actually a drain. So when you start looking at it, it's XLR, so you can just say X line return, or how do they do that? Returns the ground. Anyway, I can't remember what that saying is, but we're going to get ourselves about 3/4 of an inch or so. We're going to cut this off and hold our finger over it so it doesn't go flying across the room. And so I'm not going to strip and solder these because you saw that already. So now you have the connector ready for stripping, tinning, and soldering. First thing, don't forget, put your connector on the end of it and you're good to go. So sorry the video was so long. It's hard to do a soldering video with close-ups with the camera. Like here's both the camera's like right here in front of me. I'm trying to work around the camera, trying to get it to stay zoomed, and it's just hard to do. So this is why I tried to shoot this video, because in my past videos of repairing connectors, people complained that my hands were in the way and that they couldn't see what I was doing. It is extremely difficult to do this by yourself. If you had someone that could actually work around you and film while you're soldering, then it's a lot better. It's not going to solve the problem, because then people are going to complain, oh, the camera's too shaky. People, they're moving around. So hopefully this is better than my other videos. But anyhow, if you like what you see, hit the little subscribe button down here and give me a thumbs up. I'm in the process of redoing my website, so you can come to rickcperry.com. I'm also on blogger.com under Pro Audio Development. So check me out there and be looking for some more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.